So Phil Spencer is going on damage control right now for Redfall's shortcomings of it being just a really shitty game. So I want to hear what Phil has to say himself. I have said in the past that Phil seems like he seems like a pretty solid dude. He's just trying to do his job, and Microsoft keeps just making his job very hard. So I'm curious to see where he is at now that we've had once again another and like going. It's like the next big thing that's on the horizon is Starfield. So let's see.
Episode. It's my birthday this week, and I didn't want to have to do it. Of course, the CMA kind of blocking our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King and Redfall coming out. CMA and of course overall mindset for Xbox gamers when we look at this after months and months of conversation.
Yeah, we remain confident. Obviously, the news from the CMA, which for those not tracking all this, is the United Kingdom's regulatory board on acquisitions to block the acquisition. We'll be appealing that. That's our plan. We continue to work with the European Union. We'll continue to work with the FTC. I think there are like 14 jurisdictions all up. We're working on approval. I think we have 9 approvals so far. But the CMA decision was disappointing. I've been talking to that group for coming up on a year. They've defined a market of cloud gaming that, in my mind, doesn't really exist yet today. But they have a point of view that maybe we have a lead in a market that is just forming, and that this content could somehow prohibit others from competing.
So I guess PlayStation Now, where you can play PS3 games over cloud, your Xbox cloud-based gaming service that you've been promoting for the last, 3 years now since the Series X has come out, that's not cloud-based gaming? Okay, Phil. Again, Phil seems like a really nice guy. I've heard nothing but good things about Phil, but that seems like the higher-ups at Microsoft being like, okay, go and fix this. Do it now. I'm going to actually turn off the green screen because everything's fucking green in this scene.
In that market. But we'll appeal. We stay on it. The company remains very, very committed. We think Activision Blizzard King is not our strategy, but it is an accelerant for our strategy. So we're still heads down and working through regulatory.
Yeah, because you also have to pay $2 billion or $3 billion if the deal falls through.
I am pleased to hear that, of course, as a big fan of many of those gaming franchises over there. I'm looking forward to seeing this deal go through, and I'm glad to hear that you and the team are still hard at work at making this happen. It's been a long road. It's been a tough road to talk about it each and every single week, kind of falling apart, but
it's always the Brits, isn't it, Mike?
We're
always the fly in the ointment. We just got to rain on.
Okay.
Phil, of course, Redfall has released from Arcane Austin, and it's been a tough release week for that, coming out to low reviews and a lot of disappointment from many fans. Can you talk about that? What is your thoughts right now as we head into the first week of this game being out?
Yeah, man, I'll start. I'll hit Redfall, but I'll just say all up. There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community. I've been a part of it for a long time. I obviously work on Xbox, head of the business, have a lot of friends, get a lot of feedback. And just to kind of watch the community lose confidence, be disappointed. I'm disappointed. I'm upset with myself. I kind of revisit our process. I think back to the announcement of 60 frames per second, and then we weren't shipping 60 frames per second. That was kind of our punch in the chin, rightfully, a couple weeks ago. And then seeing the game come out, and the critical response was not what we wanted. And it's disappointing. And so kind of pick myself up. What can we learn? How can we get better? One thing I'll fight is kind of what went wrong. There's clearly quality and execution things that we can do. But one thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. Then a lot of people will say, hey, you've got teams know how to do one kind of game. Just force them to go do the one kind of game that they have a proven track record for. And I'm just not a believer in that. Maybe that means I'll underdeliver for some of our fans out there, but
well, you are supposed to be quality control because you are head of Xbox, and the fact that you guys basically bought the company out to try and also get your like let's be real. Xbox bought that company out to try and get the IPs for Game Pass, and then also try and be like, okay, whatever projects you guys have, because that's what they're going to be like. This Xbox showcase, it's games that were already in development before they bought the companies out and everything. That's what these games are essentially. That's what they're trying to market as being their games, and it's like it was already the other companies' work that they just bought out. So they're trying, and that's the reason why I always say Xbox right now is trying to buy their success, and then also they're just becoming into a with buying the success that comes from those IPs and licenses. They are now transitioning into a storefront basically instead of like a game developer. Like Xbox isn't about developing games; they're about putting it onto their subscription and turning the subscription play time into purchases from their storefront basically, which is technically Windows Store, which everybody hates, but that's a whole other situation there. I think Windows Storefront is probably going to go away in the future, and it's just going to be, the Game Pass app is going to become the Xbox app, which already is, but it's like marketed as the Xbox app, but if you click onto it, it says Game Pass.
When a team like Rare wants to do Sea of Thieves, when a team like Obsidian wants to do Grounded, when Tango wants to go do Hi-Fi, when everybody probably thought they were doing Evil Within 3.
So the first two games he just said right there would end up selling 4 or 5 versions of a Game Pass, whether it be a PC and Xbox or whatever. Add crossplay into that, and there you go. Once again, it's like perfect. Like that's the reason why they wanted it so badly, because they can market like selling multiple subscriptions off from that. It's not about really making the game sales even at that point. It's about getting that subscription service sold. If they can make the game sales also, cool. But yeah, it's where is the innovation in that? Like, okay, we, to go on the flip side of things, like Nintendo is like, okay, we have a console you can take on the go. That's innovation right there. Okay, sure, it's a handheld. Cool. Sony, we have a VR unit. Cool. We have DualSense. Nobody else is really doing this. It's vibration, tech and everything. Cool. That's innovation. That's what everybody's looking for. Where Xbox is just getting the licenses and being like, check it out. You can get this on subscription. I mean, I guess that's their innovation in the gaming landscape, is that, okay, if they want to be the Netflix of gaming, stop buying all the licenses and, squashing the innovation that the game studios could end up having, where he is also pushing that, like, oh, I'm not going to stop them. I guarantee you, whether or not Phil wants to admit it or not in this, the higher ups at Microsoft is like, okay, can it sell Game Pass though? Okay, so Redfall can be played, I'm pretty sure, with multiple people. So once again, it's one of those always online games and everything, which Deathloop wasn't always online. There's a cold hard single player, then there is a full on multiplayer, and the difference in between that is very, it's very two solid game modes. One is like a PvP basically, and one's a story driven narrative run through, mess with the AI and all that stuff. Which, like, again, when you have Deathloop and then you see Redfall, it's like, why is it so? There is, like, the DNA is still there of Arcane Studios, but it just doesn't work. Like, it just got pushed out way too quick or something. Anyways,
I want to give the teams the creative platform to go and push their ability, push their aspirations. But I also need to have a great selection of games that are continue to come that surprise and delight our fans. And we under-delivered on that. And for that, I apologize. It's not what I expect, not what I want. But, it's ours to deliver.
So following up on that, Phil, so again, I appreciate the transparency on that, but there is a second component to this. And as you may or may not know, I talk to a lot of people in the Xbox community because I want to understand, what people are excited about, what they're frustrated about, things like that. So kind of sticking on this conversation about Redfall, but it's kind of a bigger general question as well. And I kind of want to read directly from this so I make sure I get it crystal clear. So, what goes into the decision to delay a game when you launch it feature incomplete or there's a bunch of technical issues? Obviously, we've seen recent examples around the industry. Redfall and Halo Infinite are two that stick out in my mind for Xbox. We obviously have seen the review scores. Clearly, we've had the opinion that the game should be delayed. We know every developer wants to ship the best game that they possibly can, but from your level, what's the balance there on when to ship a game that may be feature incomplete or have some technical issues, or just simply give it more time? And
it's not feature incomplete. Redfall really is not feature incomplete. It's just bad features. It's just bad level design. The way that they put everything together, it's super boring as all hell on the dialogue that they made for it. The cutscenes are barely cutscenes. The gameplay is just fetch quests, go over, grab thing, run back to base, go over, grab thing, run back to base, go over, grab thing, run back to base. And then also on the hardest difficulty, you can just walk all over everything, which is, that's part of the reason why everybody's like, the AI is so shit tier and everything. So therefore, yes, they made a bad game. Is it bad decisions? Yes, but also why? Again, when you have a development studio that has made Dishonored, that has made Deathloop, that has made, that's their big ones right there. But just like all the decisions that they made in that, they made them work. How again, it just something doesn't compute there where they know how to make that stuff work, what they have in the game, and it doesn't. So how, when you have a development studio that's been around for over 10 years and they've already done that multiple times, how did it come out the way that it did? The biggest difference is now they're owned by Microsoft. Are they meddling? We're not going to hear this part of it. Did Microsoft tell them, hey, you have a set schedule that you have to stick to because we need to put this out to Game Pass because we need to get the Game Pass sales up for a certain mark in the stock market marks and everything to make sure that, because if you remember too, Redfall came out right around what? The quarter earnings. Microsoft really wanted to be looking good on that. I guarantee you they're not going to go into their earnings budget that they just came out with where they're losing, they're down on Xbox console sales, they're down on actual game sales, and they're just barely up on the Game Pass sales.
Delay it.
Well,
and
I think those
Redfall doesn't help.
And I'm happy to go very deep on this. I think if I think about a team's execution on a game, we had a creative vision, and did we realize that vision through the game that we created?
Did we? Should be did they? Xbox shouldn't have a goddamn thing to do with Arcane making a good product that they know that they can make a good product. That right there is telling you that somebody at the higher ups at Xbox or Microsoft is, getting involved. And every time that happens, we have a shit show happen with a game launch. That's just the way it works. We've seen that, like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Disney got their hands involved with it, and it was one of the worst, publicly received fighting games. The gameplay that Capcom did, like Capcom side of things, making the gameplay and all that, was really, really fun. But Disney wanting the visuals to be a certain way, Disney wanting to be the characters to be, a certain way, and to have certain characters in there, the MCU and all that stuff, it totally destroyed what was Marvel vs. Capcom for that game. So again, I'm hearing the same thing happen. So what happens with Hellblade? Is it going to be Ninja Theory? Is it going to be the dev team's vision, or is it going to be Xbox's vision pushed onto them of like, okay, well, if this we think this is going to sell really well. It's like the same thing of like a music artist going in, the record company trying to tell them what to make for good music. Let the artist cook, let them do their thing.
That's not a delay question if the answer is no. Like, you can't take something that you started on. This isn't a Redfall specific conversation, right? But we will build games that review in the high 80s, and we will build games that review in the 60s. I mean, it's just kind of part of being in game publishing. And if you're afraid of that, then you shouldn't be in the entertainment business. You shouldn't be in the games business. That said, every time we deliver something below our own internal expectations that surprises us, we should check our process. I don't look at the review scores on Redfall, and there are quality issues, and we're working on those. But I think there's a fundamental piece of feedback that we get that the game isn't realizing the creative vision that it had for its players. That doesn't feel like hey, just delay it. That feels like the game had a goal to do one thing, and when players are actually playing, they're not feeling that thing. They're not feeling the creative execution of the team. When a game needs to be delayed, what we did with Halo, we did with Starfield, we did with Redfall, because the production timeline is saying we have this vision and our production timelines don't get us to the completion of that vision, we do delay games.
I will say Halo Infinite story mode, I actually liked it. I thought it was really well done. Redfall, I couldn't tell you one thing I actually liked about it. The whole time I'm just like, holy shit, this is a thing. Like, it's a thing. I'm very curious to see if like they come out with the Gears 6, if that also hits the level that everybody expects Gears of War to hit. You know, it's like, it's one of those things of like, is the next Gears going to be catered towards, can we put this on Game Pass? Is the next Gears of War going to be always online? Is it going to be a 4-player, a 4-player extravaganza that's always online? You can't pause the damn game or, whatever else. It seems like they're kind of pushing towards that direction because Gears 5 kind of had that. But then again, Gears has always been so. And before you say, well, Gears have always been a co-op game. Yes, but it's drop-in co-op. So you start off in the lobby, you get everything set up, and then, the Gears never been an always online game. It's never been structured like a always online, co-op first game. It's structured like a single player game where you have a co-op, AI co-op companion or a player 2 with you. Yeah, and then you go through like this, very linear set. A bunch of story pieces happen. It's a very kind of cinematic but interactive experience where I feel like what Xbox, when he's saying they're pushing for more like, hey, let's make sure that the most people are going to get Game Pass to be able to play this together in a co-op setting. If you start pushing games into that direction, you're going to lose the game design that is that cinematic, story-driven experience. Which is the reason why Deathloop is so well received and does so well, and then Redfall is the way it is, where it's just like, yeah, this is made for just like running around with your buddies, blowing shit up and not giving two shits about what the storyline is. It's literally what Redfall is made for. The problem is this is not 2005 anymore, and we actually kind of like a little more complicated level design and puzzles and stuff to happen in there. Resident Evil sold very well because it does exactly that. It does puzzles. It's got a great storyline. It's got character arcing stuff going on and everything. I couldn't tell you what one of the characters' names was in Redfall, and I played it for like an hour and a half. It just nothing clicked where it was like, okay, why should I give a shit what the hell who this character is? They could die and I wouldn't care. It's like, shit.
We do that. Learning about the quality, there are clearly, I've seen them. I know there are bugs in Redfall that's launching. But when I look at like the crash rates on the game, because we get all the telemetry of everything that's happened, it's not out of proportion for a game that has just launched. It's kind of in the pocket of what we would expect. That's not to deny any of the animation, streaming of texture bugs, the AI bugs that we've seen. We will go work on those. But when I look at the review scores of this game, it's did we have enough of creative differentiation in our core idea? And did we realize that creative ambition? I'm a huge supporter of Arcane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of the great games.
Before you bought them. Before you tried to buy your success with them. Yes, absolutely.
that they've built. This is one where the team didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe
And now he just blamed the development. Hold on, run that back.
That creative ambition. I'm a huge supporter of Arcane Austin. Their track record is awesome. I love a lot of the great games that they've built. This is one where the team didn't hit their own internal goals when it launched. I think it's maybe a little simplistic to just say, hey, if you would have just delayed it 3 months, the core creative of the game would have delivered on something that was different than what it was.
Okay, that last point I agree on. But notice when he starts going into their creative vision didn't land the way they thought it was going to. Now all of a sudden it's not we anymore. It's, yeah, they did a bad thing, them over there. He's literally blaming the developer team for. I was hoping that was out of context when people were posting that up. I'm just, like posting up the excerpt of that in the text form. No, he is actually blaming the dev team. Ooh, Phil, that makes me kind of like, It goes real quick from we at Xbox are making Redfall 2. They fucked it up.
So I look at them at different camps. If there's a production timeline issue, we've been open to delaying. If we just have more bugs than we should have at the end of a game, we're open to delaying. At some point, we have to have a creative vision and put the game out, and reviewers and players will tell us what.
Well, the creative vision comes when you are concept arting the game and also making sure that you can make the game that you're trying to create the vision for, which means alpha testing.
I think.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, of course. Please, Gary.
So I have just a couple of small observations and then a question. First of all, I want to give Phil props for coming on here today
props,
and talk just for a minute about why I admire Phil, because he and I have been here before.
I really wish they had shown a little bit more of that trailer right there, because the trailer, like, that was the first thing I saw in the trailer. I'm like, there's no real main character for me to latch on to here. There's no real main villain for me to really give a shit. It's just like a really shitty version of Mother Miranda from Resident Evil. Why would I do that when I can just play Resident Evil Village and have a way better storyline and experience? Like that, and then we also have VR mode that we can also do, which makes it even cooler, that Xbox just can't do because they don't do VR. It's like, why should I give a shit about Redfall then at that point when there's other games that are the same price, essentially, if you're paying full price for it, if you just pay on Game Pass. Actually, that brings up another point too of like, Xbox, you're kind of getting what you pay for with that, of like, okay, Redfall is the way it is, but then, if you pay full price for a Capcom game, you're going to get something way bigger and better of a more high quality thing. Again, the bang for your buck. You're getting what you pay for at that moment.
Back in 2020, during the pandemic, when I was doing Animal Talking, Phil, you'll remember this. Phil was booked to come on my dumb Animal Crossing talk show. And then after he was booked, the news came that Halo Infinite was going to be delayed and would not ship with the Xbox Series X and S. And it was you'll remember, it was a big deal. There was a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth and people rending their garments. And I was fully prepared for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for a call from Xbox PR, from Jeff, your friend of mine, Jeff, over in Xbox PR, to say, Phil's not going to be able to come on the show live because, it's a big mess right now. We don't want to put him in the firing line for that. And Jeff called, and I thought, here it is. Here comes the other shoe. And he was like, Phil just wants to know, when's the tech rehearsal? It's going ahead. And he came on a live talk show and took a bunch of tough questions on a really tough subject and took it on the chin. And I've always admired him for that, it would have been very easy for him to pull out, and he didn't. He came on and he's doing it again now, and I salute Phil for that. The other point I want to make is that every time, there may be some Sony platform warriors out there right now crowing about the fact that Redfall has underperformed. Just want to point this out as a creative. Every time somebody takes a big bet, especially a big AAA bet on an original idea, a new IP, and it fails, everybody suffers. It's bad for everybody because it makes it that much harder for the Phils and the Jim Ryans of the world, the big, the creative, the decision makers, to take a chance on them. Oh, but the last time we did that, it didn't work. Like maybe let's just make a sequel to that.
Then why the fuck are you making Redfall? It's basically just Back for Blood, which also failed. Sorry, what? Where the fuck does that point come from? Like, how? What? Jeez. I mean, you could also put Redfall in the same fucking tree because it's a loot shooter. You could put it in the same fucking tree as Avengers that did also very badly with the public perception. Wow.
The next thing, or let the algorithm tell us what to do. So every time somebody takes a risk on something new,
they're not taking a risk. They've made this game 1,000 times over again. It always goes wrong. That's the reason why the first thing I said when I saw the trailer, I'm just like, oh, it's one of these. It's a loot shooter fucking 4-player co-op thingy that they're trying to fucking push out. Once again, trying to sell more Game Pass. How the fuck is that taking a risk? No, they bought Arcane and they told them put out something that, like I said, you can market, for Game Pass. That's why I keep saying this. Like, it all comes back to the Game Pass thing of them trying to ship their subscription service.
And especially if it involves something different in game design. Let's try something that has been done. When it doesn't work, it hurts everybody. So I just want everyone to be...
No, it just hurts the dipshits that made the game again. And meanwhile, Sony's making AAA fucking cinematic, big budget things like God of War Ragnarok and shit. And it does really well. And Spider-Man and Wolverine and everything else that they're fucking holy shit.
This sucks for everybody, and I see it.
Okay, I like this guy.
Sony people, to me, suggests that the reaction was something different than what you were expecting, what you were hoping for. But I know that when these big AAA games, they get subjected to all kinds of internal testing. Focus groups come in. There are third-party companies that will come in and even write like mock reviews or come like hit detection out that will tell you, here's what you can expect the press to make of your game. So usually you've got a sense of what the game is how it's going to be received before it's released, so you can be prepared for it. So Phil, when you say you're disappointed, does that mean that you thought the game was going to be better received, or was it in line with expectations? How surprised were you by the reaction, or how, like, internally, how much do you know? I feel like this one, people we know the game it has problems. Like, to what extent was this different from what you expected? When a game is released, things that may be more conceptual.
Just fast forward. Okay.
No, at first I thought your words about creative ambition of teams, you especially, I mean, you've lived this, you've done this, are very well said and very spot on. So thank you for that. And that's why I love your voice in this community, because you've created, you've seen kind of ups, and as anybody in the industry, we've all seen downs. And on the score, yeah, we do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this is like double digits lower than we thought we would be.
Okay, seriously, if they brought in game testers to actually do that, okay, here's what I think about it. Those people would have been like, I've played this game before multiple times. How is it different than the other ones that were only fun for maybe an hour? Because the actual fan perspective of this is, yes, I've seen the Divisions, I've seen the Ghost Recons, I've seen the Left 4 Dead, I've seen the Back 4 Blood, I've seen the Avengers, I've seen the fucking just every single loot shooter that there is, the Destinies, all these. There's only maybe 3 of them that have done very well. The rest of them they just taper off within like the first week of it being out. Everybody's like, yeah, I've seen it, I've done it. Like, to me, this is just like Phil Spencer just really trying to do, again, damage control on like what the hell is going on with Redfall. He's trying. I really hope Phil doesn't turn into, because he was taking some tough questions from IGN before, and he was actually coming out with some like decent answers. But now it just feels like he's just trying to tell you what you want to hear. Damn it! Keep choking on air. But also, if what he is saying is actually true, then they had the focus group that came in are super easy to please. Again, I was saying this during Redfall. I'm like, this is what they put their money on, so they're just super easy to please people that were just like, yeah, this is great. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, get some people in there who have played loot shooters multiple times over again, and maybe are getting sick and tired of them, and then have one of them, those people play it. Then have one that loves loot shooters and will play every single one of them. Now let's see the average of what they're both coming up with. If whatever common grounds they're both staying on, there's your average consumer base right there.
With this game, went through our mock reviews, and that's what's one of the disappointing things. Like we we would never strive to launch a game that we thought was going to review in the low 60s. It's not part of our goals. If you look at our review scores over the last year, it's not a defense at all. If you look at the review scores over the last year, I think the teams have done a better job in upping the level of quality of the games that we've shipped.
You had one game that came out that everybody was like, fuck yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is cool. And that was not you guys that made that. That was Mikami that made that. Former Resident Evil, father Resident Evil, former fucking like Evil Within developers, the same studio that made that stuff. Hi-Fi Rush. He wanted to do something cool, fun. He did that. He left the fucking company after it launched because he's like, well, we're owned by Microsoft now. I'm gone. Oh, boy.
Some of those games first shipped on PlayStation, but still, when I go through I think the teams have done a better job in upping the level of quality of the games that we've shipped. Some of those games first shipped on PlayStation.
Hellblade.
But still, when I go through the list of the games, you still have to build a game, you still have to ship a game. And this game was significantly below our internal metrics in terms of where it actually reviewed. But that's not on anybody but us. Like, we have to own that.
And MLB and Death Stranding also. That was, yeah. Also, Quantum Break. I can't remember if that shipped on. Yeah, I think it was on the Xbox also, because that's where I play it on, was the Xbox.
In terms of our commitment to the game, absolutely. The team at Arcane is on taking the near-term feedback. We're still working on the 60 frames per second.
And now we're back to Wii. We are working on a patch update, and we are working on 60 FPS, and they fucked it up, but we are working on trying to get it back to normal standards, and we are trying to also make this thing run as best as it possibly can, even though they fucked it up. Wow.
We have a good timeline for that. We're committed to getting that done, and we're going to continue to work the game. I think we've shown a commitment to games like Sea of Thieves and like Grounded to continue to go and build games. But I also know that these games are $70, and I'm not gonna I'm
also the system that it pushed out on. It was guaranteed to run 60 FPS and up. That's the reason why everybody buy a new fucking system.
I'm going to take full responsibility for launching a game that needs to be great. I think what I have with the Xbox community, what I am a part of, is a team. There's still questions that pop every so often of how committed is the company to this category. When are we just going to push Xbox out of the market? There's a lot of Twitter firing of Phil right now, which is fine. I'm way overpaid for the role I have anyway. So I get that's my responsibility.
Just trying to be humble brag, hey guys, yeah, I'm one of you. All right.
But
marketing training.
We will remain committed to the game and the players as long as the players want to go play games. Even
though all your player base is going to the PC, this is the reason why people are saying just get rid of the Xbox. Just go. It's like the Xbox brand should just be like, yes, we are the Xbox program that you use, your DirectX program that you use to launch your games on. That's what they're essentially turning into. The Direct Xbox is starting to very muchly dwindle out. That's the reason why he's bringing that point up, because yes, why should you run it on the fucking you spend all that money on the box, it runs at 30 FPS, meanwhile the PC version runs at 60. And actually, that's the best thing I can say about it. It actually runs smooth on the PC. It's boring as shit to play, but it does run pretty damn smooth. I had occasional frame drop every once in a while, which is like, okay, that's doable. It's fine, whatever. I'm going into one area to the next area. It's fine there. But yeah, it ran smooth on the PC version. But then you want people to buy it's $500-$600 system that's supposed to do the same thing, and it doesn't. Of course, you're going to have your player base going over to the PC. Again, they should be chasing the player base over to the PC, because then they can sell more games that way. The smart money for Xbox would be to phase out the Xbox. Or smart money from Microsoft would be to phase out the Xbox so they don't take the hit on console manufacturer, and then they can sell more games on the PC platform, because there is real-time strategy games that they don't have to develop on another system. You can just do it with mouse and keyboard, and ta-da, There you go. We just there was a no clip documentary they just put out for Age of Empires, which they have been marketing like crazy on Game Pass, and they're like, yeah, we had to spend extra dev time and money and effort making a console port of the game to take it from mouse and keyboard to a controller. Again, it's just really dumb business practice.
That's my commitment to the community. I'm kind of at a low point right now in terms of my delivery on that commitment to the community. But it very much stays. I want to support the team. I want to support the creative ambitions of the teams, and I want to support the players. And we let a lot of people down this week with the launch of the game, but we will continue to strive on. You have to, right? That's what creative is about.
No, you absolutely do. And to kind of start transitioning this into hopefully more happy news, but I do want to address something, around that. Obviously, today you announced the Xbox Game Showcase, which will be happening this June. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of new reveals and surprises that come out of that, which
Starfield marketing in 3, 2, 1.
is great. But I am going to bring it back again to another common theme that I do hear through the community. And I've actually said this to you in the past, but it's about communication coming from Xbox. I do feel back in 2021, you did a fantastic job with communication, which arguably has been the best year during this current generation of Xbox. Obviously, we know that 2022 was a light year for Xbox as far as releasing titles. Now, last year, during the showcase, you had the 12-month plan.
Trying to remember what they actually came out with in 2021. What was it? It was Halo Infinite, and everybody got pissed off as all hell because the multiplayer, they didn't like the multiplayer or whatever. Was that 21 or? I'm really actually trying to remember what they came out with in 2021 because I would have probably checked it out. And I actually can't remember. I think they came out with maybe a Horizon something or other, and it was like a lot of Game Pass stuff that was third-party stuff that was on Game Pass. Not even a lot. It was just like a few titles that were on Game Pass. That was the reason why I started using Game Pass last year. Okay.
You didn't necessarily deliver on all the games coming.
No, we didn't deliver. Not necessarily. We didn't deliver.
Absolutely. So my point of bringing that up is this, talking about some of the lessons learned that come out of that. And obviously, even with not every game making the 12 months, going back to, again, game development, things happen. Things aren't always going to come on time. But as we go into this showcase, one of the common themes that I hear is I don't know enough about things that you've announced in the past, like even more specifically going back to 2020. And I'll just run down a quick list of it.
Let me get started.
Vowed, Perfect Dark, Everwild, which is something we really don't know that much about. Fable, State of Decay 3, Contraband. Obviously, we've seen a little more in Hellblade 2. We have studios like In Exile and Compulsion Games.
That's right. Okay, so one of the rumor leaker mill news people that's on Twitter that throws a lot of opinions around, that was their list that he just read off. That's not his list. That's their list they had on Twitter. And they're like, well, where is these games that we're showing off? It's like, well, most of them were CGI trailers, so they're probably in alpha stages when those trailers were shown. So it takes another 2 years of development time to actually get a solid, good chunk of gameplay right to be like, here it is. Here's what it is.
Games that we know are working on things, but we haven't seen any real updates on that. So I titled all my questions Balance and Communication, because even in this, it's like, what is that balance on when you show something that is going to be years down the road, and kind of that cadence of providing updates along the way. And obviously, as we go into this showcase, not that you need to reveal anything specific here, but what were some of those lessons learned from last year's showcase that you'll bring into this one?
Yeah, and you might try to get me on positive. I'm not in positive mode this week, so I'll apologize for staying in kind of cranky mode. But in terms of lessons learned, and I'll even go back to the Redfall videos on IGN of showing videos of the game running at 60 on PC, at the point knowing that the game was going to run 30 frames per second at launch on console. We have to be transparent about what we're showing, that what we're showing is representative of what our console customer, our most committed customer to our brand,
not what the stats show, but okay,
financially committed, what they're going to see, what they're going to play, and that transparency just has to get better.
I mean, the stats show that 80% of every game every game that comes out, 80% of the units sold are on the PlayStation platform. So how the fuck is the Xbox their most committed? Like all the rest of it, it's like 13 to maybe 20% the most is on the Xbox. The rest is PC. So it's like, let's see here. That would be another maybe 20% if they play it both on PC and like you start on Xbox and then you say fuck this, it doesn't run too well, go over to PC.
And I'm not pointing at anybody but myself, right?
As he just said before, they screwed the game up for Redfall.
and you know, I guess at some point I will have enough knocks against me that it's somebody else here. But you know, that I think it's transparency in what we're building, what our aspiration is for the game, what it's going to look like, what the features are. And it drives me crazy when we self-inflicted wounds of kind of putting things out there of communication that's confusing or misleading about what the actual end product is going to be. So you can try to take me to positive space. I'm just not in that headspace right now. That said, when I go and I look at Showcase, and I'm not going to try to oversell Showcase here because if I were on the other side of watching this, it's like, hey, after Redfall, I'm going to put my hands on the controller, and that's what's going to take to kind of prove to me. But that's not what Showcase is. So I'm very enthusiastic about Showcase. We're going to announce some things that people haven't seen, some new games. We're going to give updates to some of the things that were on your list. The other thing that gets me really excited is when I look forward over the next quarters, which has always been my focus of how do we get a.
When they say they're announcing new games, it's third-party stuff that they're not making. It's stuff that they're like they bought the marketing for their showcase. That's what that's actually translating out to. It's not that they are it's not like Microsoft is being like, go and develop this and make it really cool. It's like, no, this is good. Like, hey, we want to buy the marketing for this, marketing slot for this, basically, just like how PlayStation does it with Final Fantasy a lot of times. Which I have no problem against that. It's just be honest about it. Like PlayStation is 100% honest. They're like, yeah, we got the marketing for Final Fantasy. We really like Final Fantasy. We want to see it do really well. We want check this out. It's cool. We want to promote this. FF16 is awesome. Yoshi is saying really good things about the PS5. Cool. Xbox is over here like, we are showing things off that we are very excited about, and we can't wait for you to play them because we helped with this, with this game. This is basically just, this is what Xbox it's always been. I wish I had known it back when I had the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One and everything, because I was very oblivion to all how Xbox worked. I didn't know the inside workings of the business back then. Now I do. And it's like, oh boy, once you know the marketing slogan and the buzzwords and everything, stuff makes a lot more sense.
Big game out every quarter at quality, that things are lining up finally after some of the slowdown through COVID. I'm tired of talking about that. But I can now see that we've got games coming every quarter that I think will surprise and delight our customers. We still have to deliver on the creative. We still have to deliver on the technical. Not every game we ship is for everybody. We know that. I'm not trying to build the one game to rule them all. We will have different creative takes and we have a very diverse portfolio when you think about the stuff that Microsoft Game Studios builds. But I like that. I think for what we're trying to do as Xbox, which isn't to mimic any of the other platforms out there, it's create our own brand and identity. The diversity of what we build, hopefully, will end up being a strength.
Okay, yeah, I've heard that. What they are building, all you're doing is buying everything and trying to call it your own. That's not building shit. That's taking over. And this is the reason why the UK has a problem and the CMA has a problem with what you're doing. Because you are trying to take over the industry by buying fucking publishers instead of just dev studios.